now is going to be Samantha Bell from University of Manchester. She's going to give us the first talk of this part about the initial petrographic analysis of Apollo 17 73002 continuous core thin section using QEMSCAN mapping techniques. So Samantha, you have 12 minutes.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm Sam. I'm a postdoc at the University of Manchester, and yeah, we're presenting some work that we've done as part of the ANGSA programme. So one of 3 institutions in the UK, along with colleagues at the OU and the NHM, that are fortunate enough to be included in some of the sample analysis that's been headed up by Chip Shearer. So today we're just going to be showing some work that we've been doing, looking at the petrology of these Apollo 17 73002 continuous core sections using the ChemScan techniques. So for background then, I know Fran already gave a great talk on 73001 this morning. So yeah, it was collected as part of the Apollo 17 mission at a double drive tube at Station 3, collecting about 70 centimetres of the upper lunar regolith from an area of the light mantle deposit at the base of the South Massif. So we're looking at 73002, which is the uppermost segment of the double drive tube. And yeah, this is part of the Apollo Next Generation Sample Analysis Programme, and the 73002 was opened back in 2019. And so we've been looking at 4 thin sections of the core, starting with 6011, which is from the 0 to 4.7 centimetres mark, and then down to 6014 on the far right there, that's down as far as 18.4 centimetres. So the aims of the project were to use this non-destructive quantitative petrological technique of ChemScan to create mineral phase maps of these samples, and then to use the processes within the software to try and extract useful information such as the modal mineralogies. And then another big aim of the project was to develop some methods of using the software to gain additional information, such as can we identify any potential exogenously derived components within these samples. So just as a bit of background into ChemScan, as where not everybody will be familiar with it. So it stands for Quantitative Evaluation of Materials by Scanning Electron Microscopy. So it runs alongside a scanning electron microscope, and as I say, it produces these mineral phase maps of the samples. So it does this by taking the backscatter electron brightness and EDS spectra at set spacing across the sample. And this spacing it's user defined, and it equals the pixel size of your resulting mineral phase map. So the measurements are taken at each point, and these measured spectra are then compared to a predefined mineral definitions list. And this list includes SIP entries, so there's a species identification protocol, essentially a little file specifying all the characteristics of a particular mineral, and it compares them, finds a match to the database, and then each mineral is also got a specific colour in the database, and then as you can see, it gradually builds up a mineral phase map of your sample. So it provides us with textural data as well as mineralogical data as well. So here is 6011, just flipped on its side from the first image I showed you, just so you can get like a little bit more detail in, as it's quite a large sample to get in there. So this was processed using a lunar specific SIP list. So ChemScan was originally designed for use in the mining industry on terrestrial samples. So we've developed a list that's more attuned to what we might find in lunar samples. And this was run at a 5 micron per pixel scan size. The legend here is super short compared to the full legend that would accompany this sample using in this list that we've got. But it's just to get your eye in with some of the major minerals that we have in this sample. So just to quickly sort of zoom in and show you some of the detail at a scale you could probably see on your screens. We've got here on the left this breccia fragment in the ChemScan data, and then we've got for comparison a high resolution, like 1 micron per pixel backscatter image. So as you can see, it's picking out a lot of the different types of minerals and clasts that are present in this, and some of the sort of matrix as well. So just to pull out another class, is the Mare basalt class, and they're nice and easy to spot as the ilmenite's bright green, and we can see as well on the high resolution backscatter image that we're also picking out some of the textures between sort of the pyroxenes in the pinky purple colour and the plagioclase in the sort of turquoise colour as well. So that's also been captured by the ChemScan. So now if we move on to some of the characteristics that we're hoping to get from this ChemScan data. Modal mineralogy is quite a common processor in the ChemScan software. So we use it as area % of sample of a particular mineral as a idea of the modal mineralogy of the sample. So on the right there, we've got a graph which is just pulled out some of the sort of major mineral and phase groups there. So we've got pyroxene, olivine, plagioclase, glass, and ilmenite. And in terms of what we found then, so if we look at the graph, we can see we go from 6011 on the left, which is our 0 mark on the core, all the way down to 6014 on the right, which is our deepest part at 18 centimeters. And we can see that the olivine, pyroxene, and ilmenite portions, they're remaining relatively consistent within the 4 thin sections, just a couple of % different across the sections, with no overall trend in that. But instead, if we look at the glass, so what's shown in the sort of creamy colour there, that's decreasing with depth within the core, from about 52% down to 43%. And equally, we've got plagioclase that's gradually increasing with depth. So as again, about 10% difference from the top to the bottom of the section. And in terms of like how our proportions and percentages compare to other data, they're very comparable to other methods that have looked at these samples as part of other projects within the ANSA programme, and also comparable to other soil samples that were collected at Station 3 as well. So of note, and you know, in terms of interpretations from this, it's been noted by other studies that this upper 10 to 15 centimetre portion of the core is more mature, i.e. glass rich, than the lower portion of the core, and thankfully we managed to be able to pick out that with the ChemScan data as well. So it suggests to us that the lunar mineral definition list that we've got is working quite well, and yeah, it's a quick and easy way for us to be able to extract some really useful information from these samples. So if I move on then to some of the more complicated work that we've been doing with the ChemScan processes, you know, modal mineralogy is a fairly standard tool, but this it took a little bit of working out the best method to try and identify these potentially exogenously derived components. So by that I mean such things such as meteoritic material that might have been within the regolith. So what we did was we compiled a secondary list of minerals of interest. So just like I grouped some minerals together to show you a very simplified legend on that first ChemScan image I showed you, we essentially did a very similar thing in the ChemScan software and grouped minerals of interest together, and then had a big sort of section of other minerals, which is shown in grey, that we're not so much interested in. But this allowed us to produce a mineral phase map showing minerals of interest, i.e. minerals that are commonly found in meteoritic material. So we've got probably see some flecks of bright red in there, some iron, and the sort of greeny yellow colour is some high forsterite olivine. So obviously the caveat of this is that unfortunately minerals found in meteorites could also be found in lunar environments, so it's not a diagnostic tool in itself. But it did then allow us to target certain areas using other ChemScan maps and element maps. So this is a magnesium element map shown in the middle, and backscatter maps to really have a look at these classes in more detail. So this is sort of really the stage that we're up to with this. We've gone back on the SEM and took some high resolution images of some class that have been picked out of the ChemScan data. So thank you. Just in the top right there, we can see this class was picked out by the ChemScan meteorite SIP list because it had some sulfides that are shown in blue and a bit of iron shown in red. And then when we've gone in and had a look, this one's unfortunately, or fortunately, it depends on how much you love lunar impact melt clasts. But yeah, this is not an exogenous derived component, but it is a really useful method for us to be able to narrow down these classes of interest that we're shortly going to be using the electron microprobe to have a closer look at a few of them as well. So in summary, hopefully we've shown that ChemScan is a really useful method, and I guess most importantly for the ANGSA samples, it's a non-destructive method of gaining a wealth of mineralogical and textural data from these samples, and you know, it could be applied to other samples as well. The software has got lots of uses, mineral phase proportions being one of them, but we've also shown that we can sort of use this software to work methods of identifying classes of interest, and in this case looking for potential exogenously derived components. But this could also be used and applied to looking at other class types and abundances of those, and having a look at the different properties such as grain size. So there's a lot of opportunities to explore some different avenues as well in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. That was a very great talk. So we have a few minutes for questions if everybody has some. Mahesh is asking, I love those nuggets of high forsterite olivine. Where could be from?
So I think there's some of them were looking probably at like MG sweet material, I think, for the high forsterite olivines, in terms of like the other phases that were in the class as well, sort of flicking back between the meteorite phase list that we've got and the full phase list. We can sort of see that the class they are looking like meteoritic material, unfortunately, in them, but probably some sort of MG sweet material. But it's really useful as well to pick out them sorts of things. Like if you were looking for that, like it's really easy, you know, it could be tweaked just to pull out those really high MG.
I was just remembering, Sam, that there was a meteorite by the name, I can't remember the full number, PCA something, and it had a very nice kind of xenocristic olivine, very high forsterite content with zone around it. So it just looked, just from your map, I mean, there's nothing to say that it is like that.
Yeah.
But those are really worth looking into detail. Beautiful maps. Thank you.
And I just had a question regarding the grain size. Can you make some statistic along the core and try to correlate that with the maturity of your soil?
Yes, we could. It's one of the options that might be worth looking at is with the data we can. There's certain processes that will separate grains out. One of the issues with samples like this is that the clasts are necessarily always very easily or well defined in terms of, I mean, we could look at them and they're well defined, but in the software, so it would take a little bit of extra processing, and there'd obviously be some sort of caveats to, you know, we'd certainly have to filter out anything that's 1 or 2 pixels in size, so there'd be some limits on that. But yeah, it's definitely an avenue that we could look at in the future to try and get some of this grain size data, and then could even sort of look at it on a scale of saying, well, not taking all the grains, but certain clasts, like how are they varying within the core as well.
Great. Thank you, Sam, for this great talk.